Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning into the Land and Home Show. Today we have another land story, and the folks that are joining us, I think they have a really unique one. So I hope that you stick around and listen to what they've got to share. Hi, I'm Stephen Davy Davis, your land specialist and residential realtor here in Central Kentucky and beyond. And today I have Matt and Rachel Mellencamp and their little guy, who I have not actually met in person yet, to talk to us about their land story. Hey, buddy. So I am going to let them do most of the talking here, but just for some context, they are past clients of mine, and we'll talk a little bit about that, but mostly about kind of how they transitioned from the land that I sold them and then resold for them, and how they are now active farmers, among many other things. So, Rachel and Matt, thank you so much for being with me. Thanks for your business, and congratulations on your second closing.
Oh, and thank
Thank you.
you. You've been a huge help throughout all of it.
It has been my pleasure. You all are awesome. I think the world of you. And just tell us who you are. I really want to know a little bit about this wiggling worm down here. But yeah,
Yeah,
let everyone know who you are and where you are, generally speaking.
this little guy's got a full belly and he's ready to play. So we're
Yeah, newly won.
yes.
Lovely.
So I'm Rachel, and this is my husband, Matt. We've been together for 12 years and some change.
Yep. And we recently moved back to my family farm. We did live up in the suburbs of Indianapolis for a few years, and we purchased land down in Kentucky because we always wanted to have some land in the country and build a cabin was our ultimate goal.
Yeah.
Um,
And that was how long ago when that started?
2021 is when we bought it.
Right. Okay. I always get it mixed up because I think we started in 2020, but we didn't close until after
Yeah.
the
Right.
new year. And so I always think that you bought it in 2020. But okay. Thank you for the reminder.
Yes, so 2021 was the official closing date, and then 2025 was the official closing date.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it sure was.
both we both grew up in the country, so we both wanted to go back to the country, but country life around suburban Indianapolis was way too expensive. So we,
Gotcha.
Mhm.
wa- we wanted to have our decently sized plot of land and our own little getaway of peace and quiet with a cabin on it. And that's what our goal for the Kentucky property was down there in Owensville. And ultimately, we ended up moving back to my family farm in 2023. So
Gotcha.
plans
When
changed.
you yeah, well, and now you have a baby.
Yes.
Like a lot has changed in your life, I'd say. So when you were thinking about country living and your land in Kentucky, you ultimately ended up with 53 acres. That's what you bought, and then that's what you recently sold. What was it that drew you to that life? Like you're on your family farm, and we'll talk more about how you all have returned back to like a truly agrarian lifestyle where you are farming for production. But what was it that you were really wanting to do besides build that cabin? Was it just homestead? Were you planning on producing? Where did your vision go in your wildest dreams for your Kentucky property?
I think back then it was just purely recreational. Like we
Mm,
loved our jobs, we loved where we lived, just outside of Indy. Like we loved the convenience of getting downtown quickly, but then also where we lived in suburbia, but also we're at heart just nature lovers. And
yeah,
so we loved having a place that we could take our dog and go camping and just have, just your own little spot of paradise. So we didn't have homesteading or really anything on the forefront of our minds back then, but it
gotcha.
has adapted to that once the opportunity to go back to Matt's family roots of owning the farm. It's really transitioned more over to that side of things. So
Sure.
even, we still like to, camp and have fun, recreate.
Sure.
It's more of just a lifestyle now instead of just something that we, do on the weekends.
Gotcha. And so you made that transition to the family farm, you said in 2023, correct?
Mhm.
And what was that like? Having lived in suburbia, having a recreational piece of land, and then going back to ultimately working as farmers.
I didn't forget what it was like to be a farmer because I grew up from age 0 to 18 or 19 doing farming. So it was always ingrained in me just for years and years and years of my
Yeah.
child. Um, but Rachel did not grow up on a farm, so it might have been more of a transition for you.
It all felt very natural though, because not only did we move from northern India to southern Indiana, but then at the same time we found out we were pregnant. We had new jobs, everything was just changing all at the same time. So
Mm.
all right, we're going
Yeah.
full force into this.
Gotcha. I don't know how I would take that. I mean, you all, what is it that you're producing on your family farm?
Yeah, so we have 6 cattle right now. We have 25 chickens, and we have about 400 acres. 12 of it being pasture now, but also the main crops are corn and soybeans. And then over
Gotcha.
the course of my 5-year plan is to implement cover crops and grazing and for more head of cattle for rotational grazing with cover crops and cash crops.
Gotcha. So, I don't want to get too deep into like how I think chaotic things are for a lot of grain farmers, especially. I know that it hasn't touched every sector of farming, but grain farming seems to be on the global crosshairs. Aside from uncertainty, what would you say is like your daily, or kind of give us a cycle of what it means to be a grain farmer for those that are watching and perhaps don't really know much about it because soybean farmers are in the news a lot for not the most exciting reasons. It's really tough from what I can gather as a third party observer. But if all things were a little bit more typical, and we haven't had so much water falling from the sky, what would a typical like overview of a soybean or corn cycle be like? Like when do you do what at what time of year?
Sure. So I just started planting because we've been dodging raindrops and everything, and you have to
Yeah.
wait a couple of days, otherwise my planter gets filled with mud. So I just started planting on Monday, got the
Hmm.
first seeds in the ground. Typically, I would have liked to do it a little bit earlier, would like to start a little bit earlier on the planting, but such is life, I can't control the weather. So
Sure.
there's a window of planting and there's a window of harvesting. So the window of planting is typically about middle of April to the end of May, or hopefully the middle of May. So you hopefully have about a month worth of planting work. Soil temperatures have to be right, though, to put the seed in the ground, and it can't
Hmm.
be wet, for germination and everything. So finally started planting, and after planting, it's just patience and praying for rain. So we're getting
Right.
now, and I hope there's some still left in the sky come July, August, in that area.
Yeah.
So during the summer, it's just patience and maintenance on
Hmm.
and getting everything ready for fall. And then fall harvest will start about late September, October, go through November, all dependent upon weather and everything and your planting start date as well. And then winter is once again patience and maintenance and tending to livestock and keeping them going through the cold weather. Same with summer, keeping them going through the warm weather.
Do you just touched on something. When once you get to the harvesting, I think one of the things that a lot of people might not know, and a lot of my viewership is is made up of people who are not as connected to land for whatever reason. It could be agricultural, it could be recreational, whatever. But all grain doesn't go to, our grocery stores. So, you've got grain for feed. Of course, you know this, but everyone doesn't know this. So who is your end customer? What happens to your grain once it's, you know, pulled out of the ground and whatever's happening to it? Like, what is happening after the harvest?
So fortunately for us, there's a grain mill within a half mile from
Oh,
us.
wow.
We don't have to go very far, and all of our land is within about 4 or 5 mile radius. So we
Okay.
just take when we harvest it from that ground, either to our grain bin for storage for later selling or straight over to the mill.
Gotcha.
But this mill primarily, when I take corn there, they will transfer it to another facility for processing into feed for their pigs. So they have a big
Mm,
pig and pork operation. So that's where the bulk of the corn goes that I sell, and the soybeans they'll take down to the river. They'll take down to the Ohio River to get on a barge or wherever from down there.
gotcha.
There's probably 6 or 8 other places I could sell corn and grain to, or corn and beans to, here within about 20-mile radius.
Oh.
But I just choose this out of convenience, and then the other places, one in particular, is a big chicken farm. So the big chicken farm turns their corn and stuff into grain for their chickens.
Sure.
The other one is a strictly soybean processing facility, so they'll turn it into soybean meal, oil, things like that.
Gotcha. Would you say that I mean, you live in part of the Corn Belt, of course, like Indiana, like obviously is just big grain country. So what type of competition do you have around you? Um, is everyone farming, or are you one of the fewer family farms left? Like, what's your marketplace look like?
We are one of the few family farms left. A lot of
Wow.
the land around us is farmed by what I would call commercial farmers. So
Hmm.
the farmers will farm upwards of 5 to 10,000 acres, and they'll
Wow.
just rent land from landowners who don't want to farm it themselves or don't have the means to farm it themselves.
Sure.
A lot of the land around us was a family farm back when I was a kid. However, younger generations didn't want to take it on
Sure.
for a reason, for risk or labor, or not, just no desire to
And
do
we
that.
didn't have this on our radar either. It was
Right.
yeah, I know we didn't get married and we're like, yeah, we're gonna farm. But when we first got married, I was like, Matt, I don't want to ever move to your hometown. And so it's just so funny how, like things change, your desires change, you guys
Hmm.
evolve together. And so it's just exciting to see where that all ends up because we never expected to be on this journey either, but it honestly just feels so right.
Yes.
I think it suits the two of you. I was shocked when I learned of your moving, probably almost as shocked as when you're like, we're pregnant. Only because they're just such big changes, not because I didn't think that you could do it. However, I kept thinking, wow, like they're just like jumping back in, like after living this totally an urban life. I mean, suburban and urban are pretty much the same in terms of like conveniences and all that kind of stuff. So, Rachel, for you, you said all this changing happened at the same time, whereas Matt is juxtaposed with this growing up with it. You're at a fourth generation farmer, Matt, which is very cool. And also, thank you. I don't think that people really realize how much you all make the world go round. But Rachel, for you, what was like the biggest adjustment? Like, what are your roles in making sure that the machine goes? Because you have jobs, you have a kid, you have all of this acreage to manage. Like there's a lot going on. So like how does your responsibility kind of come in where you haven't necessarily been like a farmer your whole life or a farmer's wife your whole life?
Yeah, there's been a lot to just like a learning curve because I think when you have this goal and this desire to live a certain type of lifestyle, you
Mhm.
can't just jump in all at once. All of your goals don't just happen all at once. And so I still have a lot of goals of, we have a garden, but I want a big garden. Um,
Yeah.
I wanted to do canning last year, but I was newly postpartum. So Matt learned how to can and he canned all of our vegetables for me while I was just nursing and taking care of the baby. So
Sure.
um, it's been humbling because there's so much I still want to do. It's just you can't do all of it at once. And so
Yeah.
a lot of things that I've been learning is just how to support Matt right now. So like one instance is 2 days ago, we had so much flooding in all of our fields and it brought
Hmm.
in so much trash with it. And so
Oh.
2 nights ago, I put the baby to bed. I took the monitor with me so I could watch him, and I was just cleaning up our fields and just taking all that trash out so that way
Hmm.
Matt planting in that soon. So it's not a lot of things you can plan for, and a lot of things you can't plan for like that.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't sound like it's glamorous either. I mean, you don't really think of farming and then picking up a bunch of litter. Like,
Mhm.
those are not things that you usually hold in the same space in your head. Are there any things that you've learned to do that have been particularly fun, such as like, I don't know, operating a tractor or like using like really big equipment or I don't know, taking care you have quite a few animals now, which I want to touch on in a little bit, but yeah, like what has been fun skills that you've learned as a result of jumping into this life?
Yeah, that's a good question. I haven't driven a tractor or combine. I've ridden in one, but um,
Okay.
yeah, he always says, I'll get you in the field someday. But honestly, like it's hilarious to take care of chickens. Like I know it sounds like it would be pretty simple, but oh no, baby. But it is just so funny because they've got such dramatic personalities
Uh-huh.
that sometimes you just have to pick them up and wrangle them. Um, 2 days ago, no, that was not 2 days ago. Last week, our chickens actually got out. I was trying to put some just like extra sticks that Matt had cut down a tree. I was trying to put that in their chicken yard, and um, they just went past me. And so we had 25 chickens just running around our yard, and
Oh
we've let
God.
them a free range before, but this one, they just went everywhere. And it was just me and the baby. And so I gave it the good old college try, could not get them back in the chicken yard.
Oh
And
my
so
gosh.
I had to call up some people who live nearby. And, it's so funny because where else is it normal to tell people like, hey, my chickens got out, can you come help
Right,
me? They came
right.
over immediately. So it's just so funny. And I love that the community down here is just so on the same page as us too.
That's good because I mean, it doesn't seem like any farmer I've ever known, even if they're a smaller operation in the sense that it's like a father and a son or a husband and a wife. It's never just two people that make it all work. Like that would be impossible. Um, it would be a very, very difficult thing. So it's awesome that even though there's so much commercial farming around you, that you still have people that understand the things that it takes to make your world go round. Because if you didn't have that, I could imagine that you would have just lost all your chickens to some
Yep.
coyotes or birds or whoever else wanted to come through.
Running
Like
down the
it'd be,
street.
yeah, exactly. That would not be good. So animals, you have this big grain operation, and that seems like that's been a part of your family for a while. But with six-headed cattle, it sounds like you're kind of new into this. You're diversifying your agricultural portfolio. So where do you see, you had mentioned in 5 years you kind of have a plan. Can you expand more on where you see your family's operation going in the future? Like, what is your vision as this? I'm sure you and your dad probably have like some sort of different philosophies of farming because you're younger, you've learned new things. He's an older guy and he has a way that he's done things. So like where is the tide turning for you all from a technological aspect, from a diversification aspect in your farming operation?
Sure. Yeah. So we're starting out with 6 head of cattle. When I grew up here, we had in our heyday we had about 50 head of cattle.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah, so we'd buy them at about 400 pounds, feed them out till they're 1,200, take them back to auction, sell them, restart the cycle. What I would really like to do and what my 5 year goal is behind us here is what we call the homestead property. So
Hmm.
it consists about 120 of our acres that we farm. So what I'd like to do is fence all of that in, which equates to about 3 miles of fencing that I have to build. So that'll be
Okay.
fun in and of itself. But if I get all of that fenced in, then I'd split it down the middle as well. And about 35 head of cattle would graze one side that's in
Hmm.
cover crops while the other half is in cash crops. And then it rotates. So they would go over the other half and the half they
Sure.
would turn into cash crops, which is how it was done when my grandpa and great grandpa were farming. And then all the conventional things of fertilizer, spray, and chemicals came into play so you could get higher yields. But those inputs are getting to be more and more expensive.
Sure.
So it's a cycle of I'd like to go back to the way that grandpa did it.
Hmm.
Also,
A lot of it is also sustainability
yeah,
as well, and
Hmm.
just like before they would just sell all of their cattle and start fresh and rebuy them. And so we want to be able to make our own babies and raise them ourselves and continue
I
that cycle
see.
on the farm. And then again, with all the cover crops as well, trying to slowly just make that more sustainable and as clean as possible.
Gotcha.
okay.
Um, you said chickens, cat. Was there a third animal that you're raising?
Babies.
Baby. Yeah.
Okay.
Human children. It's
Fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough. Um,
chickens,
I,
chickens and
I guess my last couple of things here. Well, one is we didn't really go over what it is you do, like off the farm, because I think it's important for people to understand that like you're doing all of this, you're running a family farm amid a lot of competition, like larger scale competition, thousands and thousands of acres. Um, as a what do you do?
firefighting full time, and I also own
That's I
outdoors
say
business.
that one more time.
I also own a lawn and landscape outdoors style business, and then
That's
out.
wild.
And lastly, I do CPR and first aid instruction as well. So a whole lot of things.
Goodness gracious. I don't think that I realized you were doing the instruction. I vaguely remember the landscaping stuff, but I just had assumed that because you moved, you didn't do that anymore.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't advertise anymore, except to friends, family, and coworkers, but they keep me busy enough. Fortunately,
gotcha.
they're willing to wait. I've got 5 customers on my list to do anything from drainage to a new lawn redo right now, but they're
Yeah.
willing to keep after planting season is over. So they're very patient and they understand.
Yeah. That cultural understanding it sounds like it's very key. Otherwise, might be in trouble on Yelp or something. Um, and is Rachel full-time homemaking right now, or is she back to work with what
Yeah,
she was doing before?
she's full time stay at home mom.
Gotcha.
Yep. When we moved down
Very.
here, time at daycare, and
Mhm.
then Ezekiel was born. Then she was full time stay at home mom.
Got it. Yeah, well, between chickens, I mean, it's a full-time job for sure. It's a full-time job for sure. The last little bit here, and I think that there have been plenty of things to sort of pull out in terms of lessons and advice, but I, I'd love to hear any specific lessons that you've learned as you've returned back to this life, especially being away from it for at least a little bit, and then any advice you have to give from any angle, whether it's someone who's beginning farming or if you want to talk about how crazy chickens are and why you shouldn't get them. I don't know. But like, where are some lessons that you've personally learned and then some advice that you'd like to give?
Sure. A lesson and advice is patience. I've had to
Mhm.
relearn patience because over the winter I was just antsy to get the seeds planted and get
Yeah.
moving outside, but I can't, right? So patience, and that would be my advice as well. But most important advice would be don't forget about your family. This
Mm,
can take up a whole lot of your time as long as you'll let it. But you can't ever forget about your family, and you have to spend time with them every chance that you get. Because Rachel is my support; she's my a stronghold of mine.
mhm.
And Ezekiel, I want to spend as much time with him as possible. It feels like I just blinked and he already turned 1 year old. So I don't want to keep blinking and then he's just a full grown young man, right? So
Yeah.
uh, it's something that I haven't had to relearn, but also remind myself of my priorities in life as
Yeah.
well. The ground will always be here. I can always put seed in the ground. It's
Yeah.
fine.
Do
Yeah.
you, Rachel, have any lessons that aren't about chickens? That was a very funny one. But any lessons that you've learned or any advice that you want to give from your perspective?
Um, I think just everything takes time and it's okay if it goes slow. Like I was saying before, I have all these goals and I was getting really upset that, I didn't have this picture perfect house and homestead, but
Mhm.
like Matt said, it's always going to be there. So it's okay that it's slow for a long time. You can
Yeah.
still make progress and even though it's slow.
Um, I said that was the last two questions, but I have one more just because it's a common thing. I mean, most farmers in this country have off-farm jobs, which you fit the bill for that. But do you have any designs to bring tourism to your farm to dabble in agritourism, whether that's, constructing a new home and having people like live on the farm, which is a that became a very popular model. I was going to sell a hay operation back in 2020, and the farmer that I was working with was making so much money that he built more infrastructure, like just little places for people to camp. But his house, his homestead that he grew up in, that he didn't live in anymore, was staying so full. He's like, I don't need to sell it. He's like, hey, hasn't been great, but it hasn't been awful. But now that I got an Airbnb and like six camping spots, I can. This is awesome. So, is that at all a thing that you plan on doing, or hosting a petting zoo with your chickens, with special chickens that are out there? They're really like jet black ones are always so interesting looking to me. But yeah, what does agritourism look like for you all, or does it look like anything?
A couple of things we've considered are a flower farm, like a pick your own flowers. So you
Mm.
can have this field of flowers, and anybody can come grab a basket, cut their own flowers, pay
Ah,
flat rate, and then leave with the flowers that they cut themselves. We had a little last year during the gardening season. We had a farm stand out by the road, so
hmm.
people stop by, and it was a little bit of an honor system that what you take, you pay for, and throw money in the little lockbox or
Wow.
Venmo. So that's a nice little stop as well, and that's a little bit of a popular thing in the area here
Okay.
too. Um,
If we ever get Highland cows one day, I really want Highland cows. And there's a lot of fun things that you can do with them because they really are like truly like pets. So
Yeah,
a lot of
grass
fun.
puppies.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay. Well, I appreciate you sharing. I really do. I've always felt that, well, since you moved back, rather, I've always felt that your story was really unique because you don't. I still don't know anyone else. I know all these farmers, but they've just been in it their whole life, you know, they're however many generations into it. I don't know anyone who's left the farm and then came back. A lot of people, especially of our generation, as you talked about earlier, their family farms forever, and then they don't want to farm, and then they break up their farm, and maybe they have maybe 100 acres or 200 acres that are leased out, but they don't actively do anything with their farms, and ultimately the operation just sort of goes to the wayside and doesn't continue. So I appreciate what you do. I appreciate you sharing. I hope you know that your story is really unique and special, and I, you should tell it all the time, honestly, because you're in the minority of age, and you're female, and I mean, there's so many things that your perspective adds to the tapestry of agriculture in our current state of society right now. So, what you're doing is really special and really important, and I appreciate you doing it and sharing it.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you.
Yeah, great to see you all.
You as
Thank you
well.
so much. It was good to see you.
All right, cheers.
Cheers.